Your brain does not see reality. It constructs a controlled hallucination, predicting a world that isn't actually there. We agree on a shared reality so we don't spend our lives bumping into furniture. But consensus is just a mirage. You think my face is an AI deepfake, but if my words trigger your emotions, that biological meaning is completely real. So then, what's real? What's fake? Let's take a look and find out.
Biology traps you inside a pitch-black vault. Your brain, encased entirely in bone, has zero direct access to the outside world. It sees no light, it hears no sound. Cognitive scientist Andy Clark outlines a framework called predictive processing. He argues that perception is not a passive camera recording reality, it is a proactive guessing game. Drawing on past experiences, your neural circuitry builds an internal model of how the universe behaves. It then projects these guesses outward, anticipating the environment before the sensory data even hits your nervous system. What you experience day to day is a controlled hallucination, a highly edited simulation constructed strictly to keep your physical body alive. Because this system relies on anticipation, synthetic inputs easily hijack our ancient prediction loops. Algorithmic media feeds and deepfakes exploit this exact mechanism. You scroll past a generated image of an enraged politician or a highly saturated sunset. Your brain instantly triggers a cascade of real biological dopamine and cortisol in response to a completely artificial event. The fact that false pixels trigger a real endocrine response exposes a crucial mechanism. The brain's internal predictive model does not care about truth. It only cares about successfully processing the incoming signal. Cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman takes this biological indifference to truth a step further with his interface theory of perception. He argues that seeing reality accurately is an evolutionary death sentence. This is the abstract for fitness beats truth in the evolution of perception. Using evolutionary game theory, Hoffman tested if natural selection favors accurate perceptions. The math is consistent. Organisms tuned to see objective reality go extinct against organisms tuned strictly for survival. Hoffman compares sensory experience to a computer desktop. The chaotic data stream is compressed into a simple file icon, hiding the drain of true complexity. Every sensory experience operates this way. Perceiving an apple isn't observing the physical universe. You are clicking a biological icon. Evolution actively edits out objective truth. It hands you a species-specific user interface, optimized entirely for keeping you alive long enough to reproduce. Treating perception as an interface often leads to radical constructivism, the assumption that because our experience is a simulation, objective reality does not exist at all. Philosopher Roy Bhaskar identified this exact error, terming it the epistemic fallacy. The fallacy occurs when we confuse epistemology, what our biological interface allows us to know about the world, with ontology, the actual stuff that exists independently of us. Mistaking the limits of your biological interface for the limits of the physical universe is an arrogant trap. The universe exists regardless of whether your hardware can render it. To shatter this solipsistic trap, we turn to critical realism. This framework establishes that an independent, unyielding physical architecture operates beneath our perceptions. Bhaskar distinguishes between the transitive dimension, our changeable beliefs, interfaces, and models, and the intransitive dimension, the hard physical laws of the universe, like gravity or mass. This excerpt from Andy Clark's research outlines how the brain handles this collision.
When the physical world violates expectations, we generate a sensory prediction error. This persistent error correction forces the brain to update its models. Ignore the approaching cliff edge, and gravity will kill you. Reality is defined by what reliably resists us. Your subjective interface only functions because it is tethered to a structured causal universe that punishes bad predictions. When you network millions of these individual predictive brains together, the biological model scales into human society. John Searle's social ontology maps exactly how this works. Searle separates brute physical facts from institutional facts. A generic object, X, counts as Y based on collective agreement. A piece of paper counts as money. A man counts as a god. These shared beliefs trigger cascading changes in the brute physical world. Whether the interface is confined to a single skull or shared across a civilization, its systemic causal effect on physical reality dictates how resources are distributed and which bodies are fed. In 1934, biologist Jakob von Uexküll coined the term Umwelt, translating roughly to self-world. It describes the distinct sensory bubble that a specific organism inhabits. This text details Uexküll's study of the tick. Blind and deaf, its reality is nothing but the smell of butyric acid and mammalian heat. He distinguishes the Umwelt, the subjective sensory bubble, from the Umgebung, the objective physical environment. The human Umwelt replaces butyric acid with a dense, chaotic web of language, social cues, and Searle's foundational institutional facts. 8 billion humans can stand on the exact same physical Umgebung, the Earth, while inhabiting entirely distinct and non-overlapping Umwelten. Humanity does not share a single, unified reality chamber. We are a collision of billions of isolated, biologically locked sensory bubbles, trying to navigate the same physical space. These theoretical sensory bubbles create massive friction when they are forced to synchronize in high-stakes environments, like a modern classroom. When a student struggles, they experience a massive prediction error. The teacher's signal simply doesn't match their internal priors, creating high-friction noise. Bridging this massive gap requires epistemic humility. Educators must recognize that their own interface, their mastery of the material, is just one possible construction, not an objective baseline. Interaction requires mapping the student's specific Umwelt. It means identifying the social and biological cues that allow the teacher's signal to penetrate the student's isolated bubble. Empathy is a functional requirement for signal alignment between two isolated biological systems. Without it, the communication remains noise, blocked by the walls of the interface. We arrive at a circularity. The realization that human reality is a constructed interpretation is, by definition, just another interpretation. The frameworks of critical realism and predictive processing were generated by the exact same biological hardware that they attempt to analyze. Despite this cognitive loop, the intransitive physical universe remains out there. It is indifferent to our mathematical models and ready to push back the moment we make a wrong step. We are left with this permanent tension between the constructed mind and the unyielding reality of the independent physical world.